Yeah, it's interesting. McCartney's songs are less. I don't know. Some of them just don't sound like they belong on Revolver, but this song, Here, There, and Everywhere, is just another remarkable piece of modulation. This is in the key of G, all right, and he modulates the key of B flat. All right, I want her everywhere part. Right. So our root is here. To lead a better life, I need my love to be here. But notice in the intro we have G, B minor, B flat. That's almost signifying there's going to be this modulation in the future.
Okay.
And this is probably one of the first, well, this is one of the few Beatles songs that has a traditional intro, like the old kind of theater songs and stuff like that.
All right, yeah.
Rodgers and Hammerstein type stuff. To lead a better life, I need my love to be here. Now here he's traversing up the scale, and the chords that are built on those notes.
Okay.
So it's here, making each day of the year, changing my life with a wave of her hand. Nobody can deny that there's something there. So he's running up the scale, and the trick he performs after this is the same trick he does in Yesterday. It sounds great with the truck. Now we come back to... Now here he does a direct... He doesn't sinuously move into the modulation, he just brings it in. But the melody line... A way to do modulation... Modulation means you're shifting to a whole other key, all right? A set of unrelated chords to the key you're in. It's very exciting when it comes up. And one of the tricks to modulating is you have a melody note, and let's say, we'll say the D note. Well, the D note is the fifth of the G chord. It's the root of the D chord, and it's the third of the B flat chord. Now G and D both belong to the key of G, but the B flat chord belongs to an altogether different key. I want her everywhere, and she's beside me, I need never care. To love her is to need her everywhere. Now you hear that release, the way it's kind of like, alright, because he's created all this tension by going into a different key, okay? And there's a pivot chord. This is very difficult to explain, but I'm going to explain this for people who know something about music theory.
Yep.
This is really cool. This is playing with relative and parallel minor at the same time. All right. Any minor chord could be a parallel minor to some major key, and it could also be a relative minor to some major key.
Okay.
So if I'm in the key of G, and I create G minor, which is parallel to G, all right. That's the relative minor of the key of B flat.
Right.
Okay? Follow so far? Mm-hmm. Now there's something called a harmonic minor where I can introduce a seventh chord to resolve to the minor chord. Alright? Now since this G minor chord is in the key of B flat, right, it's still got a G root. So the same chord that resolves to G minor can resolve to G major. Right? And that's how he gets the he plays with our auditory sense of the music, in the sense that I want everywhere. Now, by the way, this is the 1645, 1625, you know, old 50s. Everywhere, and when she's beside me, now he's resolving to minor, never care, but to love her. Now he's resolving to major, everywhere, and it's just such a beautiful, lovely release. It's perfectly written.
Is this, if you had to pick 2 or 3 McCartney songs that you thought were just exquisitely crafted, is this the one of them?
I'm not partial to this one because it's a little too sappy for me, but Penny Lane is one of my all-time favorite compositions of his. It's just, Penny Lane just, it blows me away. The composition is just so amazing. It's just so amazing.
Did they arrange the horns, or did they have a pal come in that was an arranger for stuff like that? The horns and
No, all the horns were arranged by George Martin.
They were, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes, like in the days of Lady Madonna, when they were kind of past all this stuff, McCartney got a little. The Beatles were getting cocky. So I remember, like, if you remember, there's a sax solo in Lady Madonna, and he hired some jazz musician to come in, and he didn't have anything prepared for the guy, and the guy really got pissed off. You know, he said, McCartney said, well, just try something like this or try that. He didn't really know what he was doing. But I can guarantee you, in songs like Good Morning, absolutely Martin all the way.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
there's, first of all, Lennon didn't, even though he was intuitively writing, I don't think he was aware of this is a bar of 2/4, this is a bar of 3/4, but he's constantly changing time signatures in the song.
No.
This is why when we get to Peppers, I'm going to have to really study it because it's very complex, actually.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But this is the pivotal album. And by the way, this is the record that a lot of critics think is the best Beatles record.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, they felt that Sgt. Pepper was too full of frills. Like, in other words, they were kind of slacking off on the songs themselves and getting more into the big production of them.
Oh, okay.
But I think the song's standard. My acid test of this, no pun intended, is if you could play the song on an acoustic guitar and it holds up without all the violins and horns and effects and all that, then it's a good song.
Oh, okay.
And the Beatles have passed this test over and over and over again, as far as I'm concerned. Should I play Good Morning now? I'm hearing dogs barking. All right, so now we got Yellow Submarine, kind of a dorky song. In the town where I was born, lived a man sailed to sea. In a yellow submarine goes on, we all live in a yellow submarine.
Is there anything more to, then this is just sort of a nifty little kid's story song sort of thing to this?
I think it was a nod to the whole psychedelic thing, even though this is a McCartney song, and again, during this period he did not take acid yet.
Oh.
He was smoking plenty of pot, but he was afraid of the LSD thing.
Oh.
Yellow Submarine seems to be paying a nod to that style. In other words, maybe he was getting a bit of a contact high socially with what was going on. But Yellow Submarine, as much as it's kind of a dorky little song, they started an experiment with tape loops and effects. They get really creative with sound effects, as you know from that song, But there's not much I could say about it. It's real straight. The chord progression is within the chord family template, straight, plain vanilla chord progression, nothing fancy. I do like the way he moves the chords around in it. It's clever. All right.
He said, she said, you've already said a few things about.
She said, yeah. He's at a party and Warren Beatty is there, and he had been tripping, and he said to Lennon that on his trip he learned what it was like to be dead, and it freaked Lennon out. It really scared him because he was tripping at the moment Warren Beatty was saying this, and he didn't want to deal with that. And I don't blame him. It's a little too existential for being in the raw state of acid tripping. But he changed it to she said instead. And again, we have that longing back to childhood here. When I was a boy, everything was right. So he's writing these lyrics about she said, I know what it's like to be dead, I know what it is to be sad, and she's making me feel like I've never been born. It doesn't feel good, what he's describing here. Who put all those things in your head, things that make me feel like I'm sad, I forget what it is, and you're making me feel like I've never been born. So there's this present moment thing going on where he's in the midst of the psychedelic thing and facing existential realities, and then on the other hand he's longing for childhood. When I was a boy, everything was right. All right, and we see this happening more and more. Lennon, he was always kind of self-reflective as a Beatle, Anyway, She Said is another Mixolydian song. And this chord progression, again, very common, okay?
Once again, for listeners out there, explain Mixolydian, how that's changed. What route are we in? And then where have we gone to for the Mixolydian?
Right, like in common parlance they'd say this is in the key of A, but actually the three major chords in this are actually derived from the key of D, all right? but they make the A chord the rooted chord, the one we want to go home to, the one we end the song with.
Okay.
All right. So even though it's from the key of D, we're switching the root to the A chord.
Okay.
The chords in the key of D are the 1, 4, and 5 chords of the key of D are D, G, and A. And this is, let me see if I could give an example. Well, again, this is a good Levin type genre.
Right.
La Bamba, you know.
Right.
But that's a D. That's when we use those 3 chords where the root is on the D. But if we make the root, we play the same 3 chords in a different order and make the root A, totally different feeling.
Right.
She said, I know what it's like to be dead. I know what it is to be sad. And she's making me feel like I've never before. Nice echo. George Harrison. And again, he's starting to get that. They're hearing, like, the harmonium, the sitar, all these like exotic instruments, and when you hear those instruments, they're playing these drony. In fact, when I was a kid, I was telling you about the kid across the street where, you know, I had a little Gibson Melody Maker and some cheap little amp, and yet I'm hearing all these Beatles effects, and I didn't even have a fuzz box yet. So I was trying. I remember one time I called my friend Mike up, this drummer friend. And I told him, Mike, I figured out how to create psychedelic music. And what I did was I'd use a droning note, like on the D string, and use the G string to create this, to give this effect of sitar, drony, harmonium, that sort of thing. And then we proceeded to talk about how we were going to become as famous as the Beatles. I remember that talk. We were so excited.
The Beatles.
Never made it. And another thing is, I was trying to get the actual sound of a sitar, and I would take a piece of paper and put it in the acoustic, or sometimes the electric, and let's see if I... And of course I called my friends up all excited about that one.
Yeah.
Just a piece of paper, but you know, necessity is the mother of invention, and it was being pretty creative.
And then I put the piece of paper around a comb and I hummed into it.
So she said, I know what it's like to be dead. I know what it is to be sad. And she's making me feel like I've never been born. She said, you don't understand what I said. I said, no, you're wrong. When I wasn't born. This is really bizarre. I checked this out today. It goes into a waltz. I was born. Everything was right. Everything was right. I said, even and so on and so forth.
Good Day Sunshine?
Good Day Sunshine was a favorite of Leonard Bernstein's and a lot of classical critics. Good Day Sunshine goes through all sorts of funny modulations. Good Day Sunshine. So right now, we're in the key of B. Good Day Sunshine. Good Day Sunshine. Good Day Sunshine. That one note is a Mixolydian note. It defines an E7 chord, which resolves us to A. So we were just in B. Context. Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
Good day, sunshine. Good day, sunshine. Good day, sunshine. I get to laugh, and when the sun's out, I got something I can brag about. You know this barrel house sound he's getting here? Barbershop quartet. That kind of chord progression thing. This is a series of secondary dominants moving to secondary dominants. This is something I taught you about. These are 7th chords that don't belong to the key and kind of you can cycle through a whole bunch of these seventh chords and eventually come back home.
Right, but you can't like hang on any of it. Are they transition chords?
Yeah, of course. So you can't hang on
You
to
can't hang on.
again, the classical critics just adored this song because it's, again, this is when somebody described the song, a critic described the song For No One as being like a masterfully, how do you put it, like a series of masterful chess moves. Everything is perfectly done.
Oh.
And right then we have the barrel house piano played by George Martin,
okay,
their producer. And this was the only Beatles song that modulated during its fade out. So it's like good day sunshine, good day sunshine. It does that at the ending, and
that's
then
a real Beach Boys-y type.
Yes, of course. He was incredibly. Yeah. He was totally influenced by them and totally respected them. All right, so And Your Bird Can Sing. I think the most remarkable thing about this song, first of all, I love the lyrics. It's just he just took such a poetic approach to this. It's a complaint about the jet-setting life and all this, and she's too cool. Sting once wrote a song called "She's Too Good for Me" or something like that. Similar complaint. She's just like, you know, top of the top, and not even a god like me can get her. You know. So. But what, you know, the lyrics are wonderful. The chord progression is pretty basic. But what I think is most remarkable, and I don't know why this wasn't like really brought out as first of all, as far as I know, there were no harmonized guitar solos up until this moment in any pop music.
Really?
And here we have this advanced kind of flowering Baroque melody. Yeah, it's interesting. McCartney's songs are less, I don't know, some of them just don't sound like they belong on Revolver, but this song, Here, There, and Everywhere, is just another remarkable piece of modulation. This is in the key of G, all right? And he modulates the key of B flat. All right, I Want Her Everywhere part. Right. So our root is here, to lead a better life. I need my love to be here. But notice in the intro we have G, B minor, B flat. That's almost signifying there's going to be this modulation in the future.
Okay.
And this is probably one of the first, well, this is one of the few Beatles songs that has a traditional intro, like the old kind of theater songs and stuff like that.
All right, yeah.
Rodgers and Hammerstein type stuff. To lead a better life, I need my love to be here. Now here he's traversing up the scale and the chords that are built on those notes.
Okay.
So it's here, making each day of the year, changing my life with a wave of her hand. Nobody can deny that there's something there. So he's running up the scale, and the trick he performs after this is the same trick he does in Yesterday. It sounds great with the truck. Now we come back to, now here he does a direct, he doesn't sinuously move into the modulation, he just brings it in. But the melody line, a way to do modulation, modulation means you're shifting to a whole other key, all right? A set of unrelated chords to the key you're in. It's very exciting when it comes up. And one of the tricks to modulating is you have a melody note, and let's say, we'll say the D note. Well, the D note is the fifth of the G chord. It's the root of the D chord, and it's the third of the B flat chord. Now G and D both belong to the key of G, but the B flat chord belongs to an altogether different key. I want her everywhere, and she's beside me, I need never care. The lover is to be her everywhere. Now you hear that release, the way it's kind of